Growing up, it always just been me and my mom. And as I got older, I had, just more and more questions for her about who our people were, what they were like. But she'd always end up telling me, the past is the past. And then she changed the subject. It did nothing to satisfy my curiosity. That all changed when I was 14 and there was this knock on our door. I looked through the peephole and I kind of couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was this older woman who had eyes just like my mom's, and like mine. The next thing I knew, I'd opened the door and she was kissing me on the cheek, telling me that she was my grandmother, Elfie. It was weird that I just opened the door to her, since Mom had raised me to open the door to no one, with the exception of Miss Wyndon across the street, and kept an eye on me anytime she didn't see Mom's car in the driveway. Although she looked like my mom, her hair and her clothes were completely different. She had on this flowing skirt and lots of jewelry, whereas my mom was Miss Prim and Proper. When she wasn't in her nurse's uniform, she was in some kind of matching set. So I asked Elfie to meet me out back on the porch. I brought her some tea and we sat out there just passing the time, and even though there was no denying that we were kin, there was something different in her gaze, something behind her eyes that called to me. I wanted to know what that something was. Finally, I saw Mom's car pulling up the drive. She saw me and Elfie sitting out on the porch. And she parked, and the next thing I knew, she was pulling me into the kitchen without saying one word to Elfie. It was clear I'd done something wrong. She told me by no means was I to let that woman into our house. Then she told me she'd deal with me later and sent me to my room. I couldn't believe how unfair my mom was being. I'd never met one solitary person from our family. Now here was my very own grandmother. I listened by my door and I could just faintly hear my mom and Elfie talking, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. Hours later, Mom came to my room with dinner and told me, despite her not wanting anything to do with that woman, Elfie would be staying in the back house for just a few days, but I was to steer clear of her, not to let her into the house, and that I should just mind my own business, like she wasn't there at all. In the days that passed, I tried to do as Mom said, but I just couldn't help but look out the kitchen window while I was doing dishes or getting something from the fridge. It seemed like she was always moving around back there. Then I'd hear her singing sometimes, and I couldn't help but listen. And I'd started having these strange dreams at night. In them, Elfie and I was sitting at the mouth of some cave, talking and laughing. They seemed so real to me that while I was dreaming, I'd tell myself to remember something specific about what had been said. But then I'd wake up and it was always like it was just beyond some haze that I could never permeate. Then one day, Elfie was gone. Mom and I had gone out for the day. It wasn't until we were nearing the house that she told me that Elfie had left and that it was better that way. I told her I didn't agree. I just couldn't believe that that was it. I'd had the only other blood relative I'd ever known just feet away from me, and I hadn't gotten to know her because of some rule I didn't even understand, and now she was gone? I told her other kids knew their grandparents. Didn't I have the right to know just one of mine? It's months later. I've started the 10th grade, and I'm walking back from my friend Daphne's house when I see her, Elfie, standing in front of this really old little house that sat kind of far back on this overgrown lot. She waved me over, this great big smile on her face, looking like she'd been expecting me. She showed me inside and told me to take a seat, then handed me this dark red piece of folded cloth. I opened it and saw my name embroidered in gold thread. It really took me by surprise. I'd never had anyone give me anything so personal. This lump kind of formed in my throat just then, and I remember Elfie pulling me close and saying, "Well, now who do you think named you, child?" Then she told me I'd been born under the full May moon, and that, like her, I'd been thrown straight from that world and into this one. Although I had no idea what that meant, there was something about how it made me feel. I started visiting Elfie on my way home from school after that. Mom worked all the time anyway, and when she was home, all she did was tell me how I could do better, how B minus I got in algebra needed to come up to a B plus, or tell me about the state of my room and how leaving the bed on me was a sign of disrespect. Elfie didn't ask me about my grades, and she had this way of looking at me when I was talking, of winking at me as if to say she got what I was saying. The dreams I'd had before returned about that time. But rather than talking to Elfie, now I'd be there sitting on the ground, talking with folks I knew, but only in this dream world, not in day-to-day life. And just beyond them was the mouth of that same dark cave. I could just feel that inside it, something was there, watching me. I thought of telling Elfie about it. Several times I even came close to doing so, but something made me stop. I thought about Mom's command to never let her into our house, and although I tried to deny it, some part of me must have thought that there was a reason for Mom's warning. But then I'd see Elfie, feel the warmth of her smile, and the way she had of making me feel known and seen, and well, like I belonged somewhere. Elfie told me that, like her, I just got certain things, and that was a gift, she said, one that went far back in our family. The trick was learning to stay open and listen to what was coming through. Soon I would be a woman, and if I wanted it to, the power might become strong in me. Or, if I let it lay dormant, it might just fade away until I was just like everyone else. So I'm at school this one day and I've started feeling really unwell. By second period, I'm in the nurse's office with stomach pains. The nurse had called the house and hospital when my mom worked, but she never managed to get in touch with her. Finally, she wrote me a note and told me, go on home. Well, naturally, I walked straight to Elsie's place. So I'm walking up to her house when I see this shadow dart out across the path and pass right through the door of Elsie's house. Don't ask me why, but scared as I was, I opened the door, and that's when I saw Elfie, seated at the table, her head thrown back, mouth open, and her eyeballs are moving side to side, fast. It's then that I notice the shadow I've seen outside is bent over her, its head close, right next to hers. Its hands are holding her head, and as soon as I realize what I'm seeing, the shape moves towards me. Then it flits by and passes right through the door. A second later, Elfie is looking at me saying, Jete, when'd you get here? Just like nothing had happened. I told her I'd seen this shadow come into her house and that it was whispering in her ear when I opened the door. She just looked at me blankly, and that's when I got the chills. Next thing I knew, Elfie was guiding me to her couch, telling me to lie down. It was nearly sunset when I awoke, and I was frantic. Mom had said she was going to be home early that day. She'd be furious with me. I rushed home, then entered from around the back so that Miss Wyndham wouldn't see me coming in. But all my sneaking was unnecessary. Mom was still at work. I made myself dinner and put myself to bed. In my dreams that night, I was back at the cave. Elfie was sitting at the mouth of it, smiling and waving me forward. And, for the first time ever, I thought I saw this faint twinkle coming from deep inside the cave. That's when I heard Elfie say to me, Your Mama Una calls you. Will you answer? I woke up the next morning. It was Saturday. Mom had already left for work. She'd left me a bowl of oatmeal, which I devoured. Then I hopped on my back and rode back to Elfie's. When I got there, she was humming to herself and arranging things on the table, then told me to take a seat. Then she was reciting these words in a language I didn't understand. And as she did so, the air in the room started to feel thick, and I started to feel something was there, this presence growing stronger. In the center of the table, there was a swirl of reddish light, and something started to take shape. And Elfie was speaking words that seemed to feed it, and as the light got stronger, eyes it stared straight into mine. It looked into me as if they knew every iota of my being, and as those eyes held me, face of a woman emerged. Behind those eyes was a power greater than anything human. Beads of sweat formed on my brow, and soon sweat was just streaming down my face, and I'm terrified, but I can't look away as her eyes hold me spellbound. Horns start to grow out of her head, and her features shift from human into some kind of animal, a goat-like creature whose horns are branching out, forming these elaborate patterns in the air. But the eyes are still fixed on mine. And Elfie, I can hear Elfie reciting his words, but I'm hearing other voices too. A multitude of voices, male and female, are speaking through her. I knew the being I was seeing was Mama Una, the ancestor whose name I'd only heard in dreams, but she was real. This was real. But I knew in my gut that there was something dark and that I must fight. Inside, I started praying to God Almighty, asking Him for His help. Finally, I broke free and turned to run, but Elfie grabbed my arm and tried to slash my wrist. I pulled away screaming just as the door flew open with a bang. My mom was pulling me by the arm while these horns, branching out and twisting, reached out trying to ensnare me. And Elfie was yelling with the sound of 100 voices coming through her. Mom and I ran to the car and sped off down the road. It felt like I was still in jeopardy of being caught. Mom must have felt it too, because she kept on driving, turning this way and back until it felt like we were past its grip. Then she pulled to the side of the road and everything just went still. I couldn't believe Elfie, my own grandmother, had betrayed me. I thought for a second she might slap me then, and I thought maybe I deserved it for what I'd done, for the way I had disobeyed her. But when she turned to me, I saw her face was wet with tears and wrought with fear and desperation. That's when she pulled me close and cried in a way I'd never heard her cry before. That experience kind of put the brakes on me wanting to grow up overnight. Gaining the awareness that there were things in this world that I had to be wary of, things that could trap me and change me forever. Well, it made me appreciate my mom more. I even understood that behind her rigid behavior and her rules, she just wanted to keep me safe. Well, my mom is gone now. So is Elfie. At least on this plane. I didn't follow in my mom's footsteps and become a nurse, just like she'd wanted me to. And I certainly did not follow in Elfie's footsteps either. Instead, I found my own way, and I've learned to use my gift for good, to fight evil and vexatious spirits and help bring light to the world. But that's another story for another time.